Have you ever gotten to the end of the summer and thought, man, I didn't really get as much done as I thought I would. This didn't go very well. Post-summer regret is like a very real thing. It's very disappointing because you have all of this amazing time where you're going to be so productive, and then the fall hits and I didn't do as much as I thought I would. So I'm posting this video in May of 2025. So summer in the US is here. This is like such a hugely important time for composer people because you can really start to think ahead through the year and really set yourself up for success. I've already made a couple videos about this sort of thing, but what I want to do is make a checklist for composers at all different levels, whether you're starting out as a beginner or whether you're a composition student or you're just someone who dabbles on the side and you work a different job. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, this is a checklist that I think is helpful for all of us. There are things that have helped me tremendously, so I want to share them with you in the hopes that, they work for you. So what I've done is I've broken the list up into different categories for different stages of life. Now, of course, all of us are different. We're all in different countries. We're all dealing with completely different challenges. So, of course, not everything in this list is going to be entirely applicable to you, but it may be in the future. So I encourage you to watch all the way to the end. There's definitely things where I'm going to be speaking to younger composers, but you're also going to see what I say to people who are a little farther down the line. And that might just be a good thing to like plant some seeds for yourself. Just things to think about that, you may be hopefully dealing with in the future. Life is long and you never know where it's going to take you. This list is made up of goals and strategies that have been incredibly helpful to me in my journey. And there are also things that I wish I had figured out when I first started. So I wanted to make this very, very crystal clear, just so we are on the same page. I didn't start out with these. Like, I very much had to figure these out through years and years of learning from other people and seeing people. I've struggled to learn many of these. It's taken me time to say, oh, actually, this is important. This is an important part of the practice. So, this video is primarily about utilizing your summer really well, especially if you're in the United States. Obviously, there are other countries in the world, and so the timing might be different depending on when you watch this and your particular situation wherever you live. So just keep that in mind. This is Music with Dave, and this is the checklist, what every composer should do in the summer. Wherever you are and you're just starting out, you have a very simple goal for your summer. Your main goal is to set a deadline and finish a piece. Depending on how long you want to make that, you could even do more than that. I've already made a video about this particular thing, so you can check out my full thoughts on that if you really want to go crazy. But if you're really just starting out and you haven't written much, maybe a goal of one piece, maybe two, one per month. It just kind of depends on what it is that you want to do. But I would say at least one. All right, it's the beginning of the summer. I want to get to the end of the summer and I want to have one piece done. That's a great goal to get started. Now, when I say this, I do not mean write huge symphony for 2 orchestras and accordion. No, please don't do that. That's not a great way to get started. What's really effective is something on the smaller scale where you really have to make something interesting out of a couple of instruments. So like a string trio is fantastic. A woodwind trio is fantastic. Brass quintet, something just on the smaller stage. And the reason for that is you want to do something a little smaller and practical so that you can send it to call for scores, and it's easier for you to get performed or read in the future if you have friends who are musicians. It's really great to write that orchestra piece, but you can't easily get that done. Whereas if you have a couple friends who are string players and you wrote a string trio, yeah, you could very likely get at least a reading of it, especially if you bought them pizza or hung out with them or whatever, however you give them an incentive to read your music. The thing that I see a lot of composers struggle with at the very beginning, the number one issue is it's deadline anxiety. People are like, I'm very good at, anyone can start the next greatest piece of music, but it takes real consistency and effort to finish a piece of music. And that's what really kind of separates the pros from the amateurs. Okay, you're gonna finish a piece. You're not really a composer until you have a piece that is done. Whether that piece is a minute long and it's for solo piano or it's 2 minutes or whatever, doesn't really matter. But the fact that it's done, you've completed it, it's in a form where you could send it to someone, they could play it, and you could recognize it as being your own. That's really the trick. The biggest thing that I work with people on is just finishing pieces, getting comfortable making decisions and getting things done. So that's your number one priority. You want to get comfortable with writing. You're not really going to know what your process is going to feel like at the very beginning. That's a huge, hurdle hurdle that you have to overcome. If you want to learn more about process, you should watch my other video on this. I detail everything that happens for me. Hopefully it's helpful to you, but that's really what you want to overcome is you want to get used to writing a piece. Oh, it's time to turn it in. Okay, I'm done. And that's it. I can let go of it and I'm on to the next piece. If you can get over that particular hurdle, you're already in a different category than several other composers, which is great. This next part is for composition students in general. So I'm talking about people who are in undergrad, people who are in a master's degree, or people who are in a doctoral degree or artist diploma or whatever. If you're at an institution, this list applies to you. And that is, your main goal is to plan out the year. Have you ever had a thing happen where you're in school and you miss an opportunity because you weren't aware it was happening, and then it came up and you're like, oh, I can't do that. That's like too tight a time frame. I didn't know that was happening. That happened to me. I remember my first year at Boston Conservatory. There was a composer's orchestra concert, and the deadline was like September 10th or something. It was like right off the bat. And I didn't find out about it until like a week before it was due. And at that point, I hadn't really learned about writing quickly. So I couldn't really just crank one out. So I had to really make sure, okay, the next year, I really want to make sure I do composer's orchestra because that's really important to me. That's what I'm talking about, is that like if you've missed an opportunity, odds are, most composition programs don't change like completely, night and day the next year. They usually do kind of the same sort of formula that they do. Generally speaking, obviously there's outliers in this. If you had a reading session in the fall last year that you couldn't do, odds are there's probably going to be a reading session this fall that you can do. So you want to kind of like think about that and plan ahead. Does the wind ensemble have reading sessions? Does the choir have reading sessions? Whatever. Is there a chamber music thing that you guys get to do? You might not have access to all of that information, and if you don't, you could email your department chair and be like, hey, what are some things that are coming up just so I can be aware of it? And if they can't tell you, they can't tell you. At least you tried. The biggest thing is there are certain things that are going to happen during the year that you want to know about ahead of time, so you can use this time to do it. If it's one thing to have to write an orchestra piece in a week. It's another thing if you know that there's one coming up and you have all of the summer to like kind of plan some ideas. So think about that as you're going along. That piece that you've been saying you're gonna write for your friend, you should just do that. Find a way to get pieces to people. Plant seeds in the summer that you can then harvest during the year. A really great year of getting tons of concerts and things like that going off the ground. It doesn't always mean that you're writing the pieces hot out the oven that year, that same semester. Some of my best years that I've ever had performances have come from when I've taken a previous year and kind of gone a little slower, really written stuff, and then was able to pay off all of the concerts the next year. Like this last year I did that. I had a piece on every single concert that we do at UM. So, two of the four pieces that I had performed were already written. I just needed to like organize that. And then the other two I did end up writing. That's what I mean, is that I could have missed that concert experience, that concert opportunity, because I didn't plan ahead. So that's what you want to do. Now, the big thing with planning for the year is that you don't want to get greedy. It is super easy to get greedy. If you're anything like me, it's very easy to overestimate what you can actually write in a period of time. That's been a hard thing for me. I'm always like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. I'll get it done in like a week. No. No, you won't. Even if you have all the time in the world, something comes up. Life happens. So you need to plan accordingly for that. So what I go with is what I call mom's law. My mom always has this saying. It's like, however long you think something is going to take, you multiply that time by 3. Oh, this thing should take a week. No, it's not. It's going to take 3 weeks. Oh, this will take me a month to knock this out. No, it won't. It's going to take 3 months. And then if you happen to have been right, then you have all of this extra time that you can use to reframe and do different goals. But it's always better to kind of giving yourself way more wiggle room to do something. And then if you end up getting it done early, well, then that is just a fantastic plus on top of it. So that's something that's been helpful to me. So plant the seeds for the year and then harvest them. Part is for recital people who are doing a recital, whether you're an undergrad or master's or doctoral or a faculty member or just whatever. You poor souls. Okay. Everything starts at the performance date. For some institutions, you can't plan your recital, you can't get it confirmed until the very beginning of the year. So you kind of want to have an idea of where you want to do it. Being flexible about the time, not everything needs to be a Friday night or a Saturday night show. In fact, a Monday night can get you some flexibility, can get you into usually the nicer halls because there's less things competing. The school isn't going to have an orchestra concert on Monday. They're not going to do that. So be flexible about the time that you're interested in and want to have availability to. You know, Sundays at like 11 or Sundays at 2 p.m., that can be a really fantastic time as well. But anyway, the biggest thing though is that everything comes from the performance date. You kind of want to have to work backwards from that. So have an idea, once you get that officially set up, you want to know that. The other thing too is that you want to have an idea of what pieces are going to be on it. Do they already exist, or are you going to have to write them, or is it a combo? That's really important to know, because you don't want to be, I mean, it's a tough place to be where you're sweating out pieces and trying to get all of the rehearsals together for all the pieces and trying to juggle all the things that you're doing for school. And for many people who are going to be seniors, trying to do that and also like apply for grad school and do all this stuff. It's a mess. So you need to plan this out during the summer. So know which pieces are going to be on your recital, know which ones need to be written, and cut yourself some slack. Make sure that you give yourself time to really say, okay, I need to write this string quartet that I'm going to do in my recital. I need X amount of time to do it, and I recommend doing that during the summer, because then it just makes your life easier when things are going to be a lot more stressful than you probably anticipate. The other question is, when are you going to do it? There's a lot of advantages to doing a recital in the fall versus the spring. So if you are someone who's going to be applying to grad school, which I'm going to tackle in just a minute here, there are advantages to doing it in the fall, and they are simply this. More people are willing to say yes to things at the beginning of the year, especially performers, right? Oh yeah, it's the new year, everything is great, it's just September, nothing's that hard yet. Sure, I'll do your recital. Yeah, good luck getting people to do that in April. It's harder in the spring. You know, you technically have more time, but then also everyone does their recital in the spring, so everyone gets really busy and everyone's dealing with auditions, and there's just advantages to doing this in the fall. The other big advantage is that for you, once the recital is done, you have access to the recordings, and you can use those for grad school, or, you know, if it's a summer festival or whatever particular purpose. It's just usually a better deal if you're going to do it in the fall. That just tends to be the more successful thing. October's kind of the sweet spot. I would aim for that. If you do it too late in November, you might not get the access to the recordings, because many deadlines for grad school are on December 1st. This is for applying to grad school people. You poor souls. This one's rough. This is a tough time. Okay, so whether you're applying for a master's degree or whether you're applying for a doctoral degree, I guess actually technically this could be for undergrads as well, but it's a slightly different thing if you're going for that level. December 1st is coming. That's when many deadlines are due. Obviously, there are several schools that don't take them until January, and obviously schools that are outside of the United States have a completely kind of different system as to when they're due. So you got to know the deadline. You need to know when things are due. When do I need to get this in and be ready for that, right? You need to know what is your portfolio going to be, right? Is it done? Or are you going to be using recordings from the upcoming year? Are you going to be using recordings from the recital that we just planned 5 minutes ago? Right? You know, so you're going to need at least 4 that are going to be ready to go. The general rule of thumb is that live recordings are greater than MIDI, so you want to try as best as you can to accommodate that. Remember, it's kind of a competitive space. There's a lot of people out there that are going to be, you're going to be competing with. So you want to just keep that in mind. Choose the schools already, like go ahead and start doing the research on them, like choose schools that you're really interested in this. If you want to kind of get a more nuanced or a little deeper into this, I have a full video about this, specifically applying for undergrad and also for grad school as well. So I'll link them below, but that's, if you want my full like 40-minute take on that, that's where you can go. But anyway, biggest thing though is you got to know the deadlines. Does this particular school need you to take the GRE? Because you have to factor in that. It's a mess, and you need to know about it. You don't need to be finding out about that in like November. If you're going to be doing letters of recommendation, you need to reach out to your teachers ahead of time to say, hey, this is what I'm planning on doing. Break it down into small, actionable chunks. Like, oh, okay, this week I'm learning about this school. So that means I'm going to listen to music by this teacher. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to listen to music by this teacher. We're just talking about small chunks of time, 15 minutes to 30 minutes at a time. But it allows you to kind of, you know, break it down into a way that feels manageable rather than just like hugely overwhelming. But that's the biggest thing, is that you need to have a plan. You need to know where you're going to apply. You need to know what you are applying with. And then you need to know what is due. Each school is going to have a different thing. Some of them are going to have essays. Some of them aren't. Some of them need the GRE. Some of them don't. And there's not really a rhyme or reason to it. You just need to be very aware of it ahead of time. The earlier that you can get many of those things figured out, the better and more successful your application is going to be. Dissertation, people. It's a lot of poor souls, and yours are the poorest. Having just come from this, Oh man, this is a whole situation. Okay, this is what you need to do. You need to understand the scope of the project and plan ahead. So, for example, are you going to do a dissertation that is an analysis of your piece? Are you doing a music theory paper? Are you doing a musicology paper? What is it that you are doing? You need to decide that sort of thing early. Like a 10-page paper in musicology class, and now it's like, do that on a 10 times larger scale. It's an intense thing, and you're going to need to plan ahead. So know which angle that you're going to take. A lot of composers will end up doing the thing where they write a large piece and then they do an analysis of that piece. That's what I did. So that's many people will do that. If you're going to go the music theory route or musicology route, that's a different thing with a different sort of a time frame for research. You need to do that, and then you need to get all of the deadlines down. You need to know when this thing is due. You need to know when all the stupid forms that you have to fill out about this thing are due and where they are. And you need that ahead of time. You need to know the proposal timeline. You need to have all of those things kind of set in stone and like an easy checklist that's just right there available. Oh, I turned this in Monday, April 28th at 5 p.m., whatever. You just need to have that right there, because what you don't want is be dealing with the entire semester and then, oh, I missed this crucial thing that I was supposed to send in that is only one warning about it on the website. You don't want that. When are you going to finish the music? That to me was like the biggest thing. I'm going to do a whole video on this, by the way, but a very simple decision that I would say for you is have the music done the semester before you do the paper. Don't do both in the same semester. That's crazy. I've done it. Not recommended. Everyone that I know that's done that is like, yeah, this isn't fun. This is not a good time. Let's say my dissertation is due in the spring of 2026. Okay, great. That means my piece is due in the fall of 2025. And get that done as early as possible. Have them be separate things. You want to just kind of have it sort of a rough timeline. The biggest things are knowing when everything is due, knowing when you need to finish the music, like when it's done, and when you can start working on the paper. And then you'll kind of break it down into chunks from there. Working on the prose. When are you going to get your sources worked in there? When are you going to make your figures, your tables, your score excerpts, all of those different things? And then you also need to build slack into this, right? Life happens, and it will most definitely happen when you are trying to finish a dissertation. So anyway, just map out the year. Have like a very, very loose sort of timeline for like the later part, like goals for each month. And then as you start the year, have very specific goals that you have for each week. Oh, okay, I'm going to tackle this project. I'm tackling this. I'm doing this. Not knowing the deadlines is like, can be very dangerous with this sort of thing. So just keep that in mind and know that you will get through it. You'll get through the end of the tunnel and it'll be fine. But that's the biggest thing, is having an idea of what is the overall time frame for this thing. What is your self-imposed deadlines and the actual deadlines. And if you can have that, you can breathe a little bit easier because you know when you need to get things done. And especially if you're building yourself some slack into your process. This next one is kind of for everyone. It tends to skew a little more towards those who are kind of in the higher levels, more professional stuff, more grad school leaning. But obviously this can apply to undergrads and hey, even younger if you can. I mean, that's awesome. And that is having a game plan for conferences and music festivals. Okay, so you need to know when the deadline is going to be for these different things, like when it is that you're going to apply. So for example, if you want to go to a music festival, let's say you want to go to Aspen. Okay, that's wonderful. That's a great goal. It's also due in like November or whatever. It's due sooner than many of the others, and that can catch you off guard. Generally speaking, most places will keep the same deadline that they did the previous year. Like I remember for me, like, when I was a student and I really wanted to go to some of these things and I was having to work and I couldn't, just like drop the money to go, I had to think like more than a year in advance. Like, okay, I really want to go to the Cortona sessions in 2015. Well, that means I need to save up the summer beforehand and work at the restaurant and make sure that I have enough money to cover everything so that I can go to that the following year, assuming that I'm able to get in the first place. Know what you're planning on doing in terms of festivals. If there's a couple places that you're interested in, just go ahead and have an idea. What am I applying with? It should be very similar if you're doing a grad school situation, but you just kind of want to give yourself like some wiggle room. If you do need to write a new piece for your portfolio, it's good to know that so that when it comes up, you're ready for that. You need to know the cost of these particular things. things, right? So that's not just the tuition, right? But like the flight to get there, if you have to travel there, the food, and then you always want to factor in a little bit of emergency money as well. So it's always more than what they say it is. And the same thing is true for conferences. Conferences can be a really great way to meet people in the industry, depending on what it is that you're doing. Let's say you're doing something like Midwest Clinic, which obviously is like kind of band world and a little bit of orchestra world as well, which is different than ACDA, which is like choral world. Depending on what it is that you want to do, if you're someone, I really want to have a presence in the choral community, going to ACDA and getting to meet other, people who write music for choir, and also people who are like singers and choral conductors, and seeing what they kind of value and what they believe in and is important. Yeah, that's like great. That's really good. So you want to know about it. Same is true for if you're applying for a prestigious award. So let's say you're like, all right, I'm really interested in the Fulbright thing, or I'm really interested in the Language Institute, or whatever particular thing that you're interested in doing. It's really good to know when those things are happening so that you just have a little bit more time to put it in. If you're at a school, seeing what kind of resources they have and are available. Like sometimes they'll do events that are geared towards this particular thing, like especially like a Fulbright or something that's kind of widely known. If you are a faculty member, you might want to go ahead and start thinking about the school year, and in terms of what just happened this year that went well and what didn't go well, and how to change your syllabi from there. That's always, especially like now in May when you've just finished everything, that's very helpful because it's still kind of fresh on your mind to like think about like, oh, this particular week was kind of rough. Is it a me thing? Is it a student thing? Is it a curriculum thing? What's really going on here, and how can we improve it and make it better? That's something to think about. If you're on the tenure track, you want to be thinking about what are the things that you are doing to earn tenure, what are your creative, research goals, publication timelines, all of those sort of things. This is a good time to kind of have a bird's eye view of, okay, this is the year, this is when all the grants are due, what am I applying with this year? Things that caught you off guard last time, you want to be aware of this year. So just thinking about all the opportunities that are available at your institution and what it is that you're doing to maximize your chances of achieving tenure. This next one is for anyone who had a performance during the previous year, and that is submit your royalty stuff. Have you submitted all of the performance information to your P.R.O. from last season? Keep in mind, student recitals do not count, but anything that's not that is fair game for you to send to them. So if you don't know, a P.R.O. is a performance rights organization, something like ASCAP or BMI or CSAC. I'm a BMI person. I've had no problems with them. I think they're great. But it's easy to forget. And all you need to do is submit the information. You just go on the website and see what they need from your specific thing. It's basically free money if you had a performance. So you can't trust that performers and organizations are always going to send that stuff in. It's always on us. So make sure you get a copy of the program of whatever performance if you haven't already. If you don't have it, reach out to the performance people immediately and get that as soon as possible. For BMI, it's usually due in like August, so it's coming. You want to get it done and be ready for it. Okay, so when we talk about projects, right, that's a whole other thing. This is a little more of the Wild West, right? You could be working on building your website, and that is a whole thing to break down, whether you need to get headshots and you have audio that's available to upload, and you got to pick what service you're going to use, and whether you're going to design it or if you can afford to pay someone else to do it, or there's like a whole slew of things, and you want to make sure that you're breaking it down, whatever it is, whether it's doing a website, or it could be something like, oh, I want to finally start that YouTube channel, or I want to do a podcast, or whatever, build a garden. It doesn't have to be a musical thing too. It's just nice to have kind of like a rough timeline. Break it down into manageable chunks. Whatever you think you can do, give yourself a little bit more time to do it. Oh, I can knock this out in a day. That's going to be fine. Give yourself a week. And then if you happen to get it done early, hey, wonderful. Everyone is going to be dealing with different things, whether you're applying to grad school or you're doing a recital or you've had, whatever it is that you're doing or dealing with, life happens. And so it's nice to kind of have an idea of, okay, these are all the things and how does this mesh? When is the day that I work on my website? When is the day that I do this particular thing? When do I knock this out? It might take some time to figure out, but that you're not overloading yourself. Like sometimes you're going to have to say, yeah, I'm putting on a recital right now. I can't really focus on doing my website right now. And that's okay. That's fine. It's better to really focus on this one thing, this one project, and get that done, and then do the next thing, rather than spreading yourself too thin and I'll work on the website and I'm doing my recital and I'm applying to school. It can be too much. So don't overload yourself. But if there is something that is really pressing, you want to have an idea of okay, well, how am I going to break this down And when am I going to do this? And give yourself very small, actionable, manageable chunks. Before I get to the last item on the list, I want to offer a word of caution. It is super satisfying to plan all this crap out. Like, yeah, this week I'm going to do that, and the next week I'm going to do that, and the next week I'm going to do that, and by the time I'm done, bleh. And planning is not action. It's nice, and sometimes I know for me, I have a really hard time harnessing what I'm doing if I don't have like a clear idea of like how it fits in with the rest of time. So there's something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said for over planning and not actually doing work. Like planning this stuff out is not the same thing as doing the work on it. And that's, I think, a really important thing. It's very easy to get greedy. It's very easy to get swept up in your ideas as you're coming up with them. But what's better is to make very slow but consistent progress on something. So if you're like, oh man, I've got this website project and I'm going to do this thing every day and blah, blah, blah. And in 30 days, I'll have done all this crap. I'm like, okay, that's great. Maybe instead of thinking in days, you think in weeks, because life happens and things come up that you don't expect. And also most of the time, things that you think are going to be simple and easy, like, oh, I'll just write my bio or whatever, end up taking you longer time than you expect. And then I know I've been here many times where you gotten so greedy in your planning that you miss one day, so then you have to, oh, I've got to catch up. So I'll just do twice as much tomorrow on Tuesday. It'll be fine. And then something happens, like, oh, well, I wasn't able to get that done. I couldn't quite get that. So I'll do 3 times as much on Wednesday. And then you can't do that. And then you get caught in this like eternal cycle of guilt where you're like, I didn't do this and blah, blah, blah. And by the time, you try and even make any progress with that, it's August. And then, oh, wait, crap, I didn't do anything. This is how you get out of the guilt cycle with that. If you give yourself plenty of slack and plenty of time to do something, you give yourself more time than you actually need to do it. If you have to miss for some reason, if you get sick a day or something happens, you're not punishing yourself for this sort of thing. So just be very careful with this. I'm offering this because I know a lot of people tend to struggle with things primarily because they just weren't aware of when things were due and when things are happening, what's going on, and things become missed, opportunities because of that. But the bigger, I'd rather you consistently write and do small work than make all of these fantastic plans that then don't happen, that then become this sort of guilt thing that keep you from doing things in the future, if that makes sense. I know that because I've been there where I've had summers where oh yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff, and then I planned it and then I didn't execute on it, and then it just becomes that monkey on your back telling you, hey, you can't do this. So anyway, just be aware of that, planning is not necessarily action. It's a great idea at the beginning of the summer. Just have an idea of what it is that you want to do, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to break it down, and then making sure that you actually do it, actually doing some of the things. Plans aren't everything. Action is far better than planning. So last thing on the list for this whole thing is have a clear day or time that is the sole purpose is to take a break. You need to take a break. It's a thing. It sucks. It would be cool if we could just bulldoze and get all this stuff done all the time, but you can't. I mean, maybe you can for a little while, and then it becomes unsustainable, and then there's bitterness and jadedness, and things get missed, and it's not good. It's not a good time. You need time off, and that's an important thing. And you need to cook it into your system. It needs to be part of the infrastructure of what you're doing. So, because you need rest to come up with interesting stuff. You need times to let your brain wander so that it's oh man, what if I did this crazy thing with the trombone and the harmon mute? Or whatever, that kind of stuff just can inspiration can strike, and you need to give yourself room for that to happen. So this is going to be different for everyone depending on what stage of life that you're in, whether you're working a job or whether you're not working a job or whatever. For me, I really try and keep my Sundays as family day. Okay, this is a day where I'm not really worried about, composition things. I might do a little if I really feel it, but if not, and I just am focusing on spending time with my wife, then wonderful. That's what I need for that particular day. And sometimes Saturday mornings are off. Actually, when I was in dissertation land, it was a different story. Okay, there's a different kind of hustle with that. So my time off was Sunday morning. I always look forward to Sunday morning. Okay, I'm taking Sunday morning off, and then I'm going to do some light work in the afternoon. That was my I could look forward to it. That's kind of the trick with time off. So depending on where you are, you may get to have a little bit more time off. You may get to have a little less. It just depends on where you are in your life. Really, really important, and it should be part of your planning for the week. Oh, okay. Friday night, gonna go have some drinks with some friends. Oh, Sunday morning, that's my time to just like read. Just make it part of the structure for you, and you will, trust me, you'll be very happy with yourself for sure. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. Leave me a comment below. What are some things that you do differently during the summer that you like to think about that help you through the year? Did I miss anything? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I do this thing and you didn't mention that at all? I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to talk about it and see you in the comments. I try my best to read everyone. I try my best to reply to everyone. So anyway, so if you are interested in supporting the channel, please like this video. And if you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. That helps me tremendously. I get to reach more people when viewers like you do that, so that's very meaningful to me. So thank you. We'll see you in the next one. See ya. Cheers.